The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of Spaced Out Radio or Spaced Out Radio Limited is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced?
Stop right there!
From high atop the mountains of British Columbia to you listening around the world, this is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
They let us play with all our toys, they let us think that we're big boys, they let us make the louder noise, but we ain't rule the world. They let us think we're Superman.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, on iTunes and TuneIn. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, or on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you. I will stop till I reach the top just to be there with you.
Dave, oh Dave, are you playing with Bigfoot and aliens again?
Dad, you gotta stop haunting the ghost. It's scaring them.
All right, seriously, put down the pointy sticks.
Okay! Game on! Game on! Game on!
The password is...
All right.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio. Mr. Bumblefoot, Dave is ready for liftoff.
I try to act so cool, but you know I'm just a fool for you.
Seriously, Dave? Really? Aren't you a little old for a tinfoil hat?
Hello, Toby. Bye-bye. Love you. Bye-bye.
Please take your seat above all. There will be it's time to take it off. Start. 2, 1, boost ignition, and lift off.
I'm such a lucky guy, 'cause after all this time, it's like the deeper I go, the deeper I fall. The deeper I go, the deeper I fall.
Good evening and welcome to another week of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott, and it's great to have you along for the ride on this Monday, May 8th. Captain Gail Shirk's birthday, one of our great listeners. Happy birthday, Gail. Tuesday, May 9th, if you're listening in on the East Coast. Hope you had a great day and a great weekend that just passed. We are live right here in Uncle Jimbo's cabin, right here in the Great White North, as we are live 7 days a week. Let's welcome in our terrestrial radio stations. WQEE 99, Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We're also live in New Orleans on 107.7 FM, the United Public Radio Network, which is also spread over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us. We're live on spacedoutradio.com, on Spreaker, KTLK, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and on Revolution Radio. Remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. All of our theme music is provided by the guitar god himself, Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL, formerly of Guns N' Roses, currently of Art of Anarchy. Bumblefoot is the official sound of FSOR. If you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter, at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. You can tune us in on TuneIn, download our shows from iTunes. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, Stitcher, and Player.fm. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. And if you head over to Patreon.com, for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of SOR. Now, if you want to take part in this show, we don't take phone calls, but we do take all of your questions from the chat rooms. And we got a plethora of chat rooms. Go to our website, click on Listen Live, sign into the chat room there. If you're on Revolution Radio, we'll hit you up there as well. On Spreaker, on the UPRN chat room, or if you're one of the lucky valued members of the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook. Or if you go to Twitter, just use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. I'll get your questions and comments in there as well. If you head to our website for just $5 a month, you can become an SOR space traveler. We have a great news section called The Encounter Online, dealing with everything paranormal, courtesy of our editors, Eric Markham and Everett Thiemer. You can also check out my latest blog on there as well. And if you've had a sighting you can't explain, fill out an SOR Sightlines report. Our researcher, Mike Schmidt, is ready to find out what's going on. Now, tonight we're back for an abbreviated week for me on this show. I'm actually taking a holiday. Hard to believe, I know. I know you guys are like, what? What's going on? Why is Dave taking a holiday? He never takes a holiday. Well, I'm going to be here tonight and tomorrow night. James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend will be filling in for me the rest of the weekend on Monday because I'm traveling to Boston on Wednesday. And I will be taking part in the first annual Provincetown Paracon. I will be back hosting the show on Tuesday, May 16th. So make sure you still check out the show. Still live programming. Nothing recorded because we keep it live for you every single show. So to warm up for the weekend, we are getting a little ghostly and alien tonight with an intriguing paranormal adventure from our guest, Michael Huntington. Michael is a great paranormal investigator and enthusiast who loves traveling adventures when it comes to finding all things weird and spooky. Whether it's ghosts or the latest UFO sightings, or even looking into the mysteries of the past, Michael is someone who loves to find a good story and see where it goes. It's the paranormal vagabond lifestyle of this adventure that he enjoys the most. You can try out his website, huntingtonstrangetravels.wordpress.com. I'll give that to you once again. huntingtonstrangetravels.wordpress.com. Michael Huntington, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you, my friend?
I am doing great. Thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
You know what? I love what you do, my friend. I really do. And I'm excited to get into it because we're going to talk about this literally for 3 hours tonight. You're going to go the distance, and I love it when guests go the distance. You know, you're not doing the 7th inning stretch after 2. No, you're going the full 9 innings tonight, and I appreciate that. You know, and one of the things that I'm excited to have you on is you're a paranormal investigator. You are someone who looks at the entire tree of the paranormal, and you investigate each simple branch. What made you get into the paranormal? What really stirred this whole topic and this whole travel up for you?
I actually don't really consider myself too much of a paranormal investigator, more as a researcher. I don't necessarily take equipment into places and engage in scientific studies in order to gather evidence. I do like to go to places to document the stories and the folklore and the history surrounding all of it, and its impact upon history and culture, and to get some good photographs, and also just to be in these interesting spots that I grew up reading about in books. I'm just shy of 50, which means, back in the 70s, I was an impressionable youth. And during that time period, especially in the Midwest, the paranormal was a dominant factor, at least in my household. We got the weekly tabloids, and we went to the drive-ins, and we watched the Chick Sun classics, the cheesy documentaries on various paranormal things. And in the Midwest during that time period, there was a lot of UFO sightings. So I pretty much was around that culture growing up throughout the 70s, and it got me into it back then, and it really has never left. And now that I'm older, and I have a family, and we like to travel. I travel to some of these places that I read about as a kid to try to get an idea of what the locations were like and where people were, and it's sort of an after effect sort of way to look at it and to connect to it. It's a little better than just reading about it or watching a documentary. And we started doing this a few years ago, and it's taken off. We have a lot of fun. We visit all kinds of interesting places along the routes that we travel when we take our regular vacations. If there's a UFO landing that took place nearby, or a haunted house, or a Bigfoot sighting, we'll try to stop off and get a look at it and document it and share it with people.
That sounds absolutely amazing. How did you get your wife to go along with this? Is she an enthusiast as well, or she's like, oh my gosh, Mike's taking us on another adventure. Where are we going this time, Mike?
Yeah, I've been to these places, but my wife and my kids have also been to these places. So I'm giving them this unusual experience. I try not to rob them of regular vacations. I don't try not to go too far off course. I didn't drag them out to a field or anything like that. But we try to have fun. My wife is not really into the subject, but she knows me, and she knows that I am into the subject, and she knows it'll be fun and interesting and different, and it's something that I like to do. So she supports that. Yeah, people automatically, assume that she must be into the subject, or she must be really, really understanding. Because, if you're not really into, the weird stuff, it's just sort of an eye roll sort of thing. But, she has fun, and we have fun, and she knows it's unique experiences that we are having.
How do your kids like it? They think Daddy is weird, or do they go along with it thinking it's some sort of cool, crazy adventure?
Yeah, both of those, I think. they know it's a little different, and but they also, as kids, they're getting to do some of the cool stuff that I wish I could have done when I was a kid. My boys have hunted through the TNT swamps of Point Pleasant looking for the Mothman, in the real spot. They've been into haunted houses, and they've been to where alien spacecraft have landed, and where people have seen Bigfoot. So they sort of have a cool bragging right thing with some of their other friends and schoolmates. But they think it's fun. They think it's cool. I like immersing them into this. Not to have a belief system or anything, because I don't necessarily believe in all the stuff that I research or study. but it gets them curious and it gets them interested, especially, when I ask them different theories, because I try to get them to think of different things that, say a Bigfoot could be, and it's fun hearing their interpretations. And, that's sort of the point with bringing the kids along as well, is to get them interested into the strange, the unusual, and, in the sciences as well. We do visit a lot of, museums too. Usually we'll be going to museums as we're stopping off at some of the strange places.
One of the things I actually like about this is you are teaching your children history. So it is a learning experience. It's just coming from a different nature. So every time you go on an adventure, it is a history lesson for them.
Right. And we go to a lot of aviation museums, and we kind of look at, it's connected to the UFO stuff because there's a lot of interesting aircraft that are part of the UFO story over the history, especially a lot of, secret X-planes. And we try to hunt those down, track those down at the different museums to get a look at them. And, there's also the ulterior motive of, I'd like my kids to go into, the sciences and into aviation perhaps, or something like that. So, there's double benefits. I get to write about different things and the kids get to, experience cool jets and stuff like that.
That's what I loved about taking my kids down to Boeing Field in Seattle, is to experience that. And the cool part about it is in Seattle, you can actually sit inside an SR-71, which is absolutely insane, Nice. So, but I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen a cockpit of an SR-71 up close and personal, but even with a spacesuit, I am surprised those guys could even get in there. My goodness. That's tiny.
Yeah.
Very tiny.
Yeah, I think they literally had tools that, they called the can opener, to kind of get these guys out of these craft they were squeezed in. So Ty, you're right.
So did you have paranormal or ufological experiences as a kid that led you to this path of intrigue, or was this just one of those hobbies that you thought, man, this would be cool to study because I just love this stuff?
Well, yeah, I've always, found it interesting, and I read a lot of UFO books and paranormal, Ancient Aliens and Loch Ness Monster, all that sort of stuff back then, and that was pretty much the predominant influence. I did have, a sighting when I was around 10. But, it just sort of solidified my interest in it, and I had a sighting in 2008 as well, but that appeared probably more like maybe a secret government craft just by its appearance. It was one of those black triangles. Other than that, aside from seeing a couple of objects, I haven't really had any monster encounters or ghost encounters. I've been in some of the most haunted houses, so I haven't really had any experiences along that realm. I've had a few photographic anomalies at different places that were considered active, either in UFOs or ghosts, and a few interesting things occurred, with the equipment and the photographs, but nothing overt, nothing, no ghost tapping me on the shoulder or materializing in front of me, or, encounters with any man beasts or anything, at least, recently or anything that, is concurring.
So what do you prefer to investigate? Do you like the paranormal? Do you like the cryptid things like Mothman or Bigfoot? Or do you prefer going to the UFO hotspots? What really geeks you up about this?
Well, it's, I like to have a lot of different eclectic interests. All these are kind of tied into each other, and I think if you talk to people that are into ghosts or UFOs or Bigfoot or whatever, they're also interested in some of the other unknown mysterious phenomenon, whatever it be. But no, no. What was your question again? I'm sorry.
Well, what do you prefer to investigate?
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I prefer UFOs. That's probably the subject I've read the most about and have had experiences. I was a member of the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization back when they were in operation, and as well as I was a member of MUFON from time to time. But yeah, I've always had my foot sort of in that. But I have read and researched a lot of the other interesting stuff. I do find Bigfoot fascinating, especially since there's a lot of locations around my area in southern Illinois. There's a lot of interesting cryptid encounters that are interesting to visit and speculate about. So I don't know, probably UFOs and Bigfoot probably be the big one.
Mine too. I'm going to tell you right now, man. If you ever make it to British Columbia, you come up to see me. We have absolutely everything. I have been tipped off to where there is a Bigfoot hotspot, and my area where I live has one of the most famous alien abduction stories in North America by a lady named Miriam Delicato back in 1988. And I think I've actually found the spot where it happened. And I'm going to be with Miriam later on this summer to actually discuss it with her and take her back there and find out where it is. So if you want aliens, you want Bigfoot, you come visit me. Bring the family on up. The door is open at the Scott's household here. And,
I think we will have some Pacific Northwest travels here in the next few years. We actually do have some planned to happen to Seattle and Vancouver. So. We'll see.
Well, I'm about 5 hours north of Vancouver, so you just got to keep on driving. Okay. Keep on driving.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Now, you mentioned that you like Bigfoot and UFOs the best, and I got to say, right off the bat, you sound way too normal to be dealing in this stuff, and way too level-headed. Usually, us people who wear the tinfoil hats, we're a little quirky, Mike, and I'm not getting that from you.
I'm very quirky. I mean, you have to be quirky if you're sort of immersed into this, all the time, and people that follow my blogs, Instagram or Facebook or whatever I'm putting stuff out there for, they know that I try to put a few things out a day. So I'm sure some people are like, man, he's really into this stuff, but some people may worry about my sanity, but hey, I'm keeping busy. It's not really as insane, as long as you keep your feet on the ground. I mean, there's a lot of insane elements to the various phenomena themselves, but but also the cultures involved, so it's so with all different kinds of people, and I do appreciate you thinking that I'm level-headed, but I'm probably just as strange as anybody else that's really into these subjects,
I know the feeling.
Whatever. Well,
I know the feeling. So let's start off with some UFO chatter here, because I'm a big UFO guy as well. And I'm a firm believer that there is something flying around in the skies that we just don't know. And, there's too many experiences that people have out there, millions of people out there have had, that just don't make sense. And I'm not saying looking up in the sky and seeing, a strobing light that disappears or the satellites that maybe are traveling a little too fast. I'm saying real close encounters where you get that question from a lot of people, are you on drugs? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's a lot of that happening out there. And I'm just wondering, when you're dealing with the field of ufology, how do you go about it? Do you go about the experiencers and what they've said, or do you go about it by collecting evidence on what other reports have had, maybe stories that have gotten the media or government speculation, so on and so forth?
Well, I haven't really been in the field investigation, game too much. Like anybody else, I read all the manuals and all that. But for me, I sort of look at it as a nuts and bolts guy, not necessarily accepting that everything is answerable to the extraterrestrial hypothesis, because I really don't think that everything is. And I think one problem that we do have is putting all of these cases together, cases that have different levels of merit, different levels of evidence, perhaps different phenomena, and we sort of put them into, one encompassing overall phenomena that we want a universal, unified field answer for. And some people believe that, the preponderance of, the unknown cases are extraterrestrial in origin, and that has become the predominant viewpoint for, mainstream ufology, is that we are dealing with an extraterrestrial presence. There are those that do postulate more metaphysical ideas or ideas of beings coming from, multiple dimensions. But there's an arm within ufology that believes that. I try to view things through the lens of scientific ufology. That is something that I support, and I think that the focus needs to be more on looking at the cases individually, establishing a non-biased methodology for investigating in the field, and actually trying to get out and verify and identify and perhaps get some science from some of the anomalies. So I've sort of moved away. There's always the theoretical side of things, and you're going to have cases that may merit the extraterrestrial hypothesis. But I think if ufology is going to be more than just a belief system where you're trying to get people to, you're trying to persuade people to believe something, I think we're missing the point that we need to get to, that there's actually anomalies out there that are worthy of investigations. Some of them, might be natural phenomena. Some of them might be unknown phenomena that we can investigate and should investigate. And certainly some of them are probably secret government craft. But, and some of them might be extraterrestrial. But in order to get to those, we have to filter through a lot of this other stuff, and we have to do it in an unbiased manner so that we can actually get some good supporting evidence. That's what we're lacking, and that's what the focus needs to be on. Not persuading, but persuading through evidence and through field investigations and field studies, in my estimation. So I don't know. The big answer to that question is it depends on what case you're talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely, that every case is different. But what do you think is actually up in the sky? So out of every 10 UFO sightings, how many do you think are ours compared to of other worlds?
Well, I guess what have been the statistics that have been thrown around since the 60s, that a majority of UFO sightings are probably some sort of IFO that are misidentified. So what does that leave us? A few out of those 10 that are maybe something interesting. Surely people are misidentifying things, and surely people are seeing stuff that is probably ours. How do we get to the really anomalous stuff, the weird stuff that that we can and try to figure out, what they're doing, and try to figure out patterns, and try to, get some evidence. We can record cases after the fact forever, and you'll get statistical data that way. As long as it's vetted and purged, a lot of that stuff is not really thoroughly investigated. A lot of those cases are not thoroughly investigated, I think. But I don't know. I think probably maybe 1 out of 10. Maybe half of 1 out of 10 is maybe something that could be something from elsewhere. It's sort of a cop-out answer, but this has really, been my position that I've developed. That some UFOs might be from here, some might be from there, some might, most are probably misidentified. But how do we get to that small fraction?
I understand that. And do you believe, though, that the anomalous things that are in the sky that people are reporting are of true nature? Do you think people are actually seeing what they are seeing, or do you think that they just don't study what is happening up in the sky, enough to have clarity as to what the International Space Station is, or what a satellite is, or hell, even a bright planet? Meteorites, for instance.
Right. General folks, even though they do have, apps on their phones to help them with a lot of this sort of stuff, are capable of misidentifying things, But what are we actually seeing? I don't know. And I don't know. Some of this stuff might be from other planets. How do we determine that? Do we determine that through physical evidence from close encounter sites, or evidence from abduction cases? Because that moves you into a different realm of what is substantial evidence, what is evidence that is going to be conducive towards promoting a theory. Because mainstream science does have negative views of some of the techniques that are utilized in close encounter of the second kind case or third kind cases. So I don't know. I think if we had some sort of physical evidence denoting, and that's really where a good place that a lot of ufology can focus on is trying to get back to getting some physical evidence, things that are measurable. This is my old nuts and bolts side. Some people, have metaphysical interpretations, to where, all of this is not going to necessarily make scientific sense. And that opens up the philosophical questions. But for me, evidence is a key thing. And, I don't want to believe something based upon, somebody's testimony. I want to know something by having strong evidence or a preponderance of the evidence that is going to support, hypotheses.
Do you believe then that we're putting too much stock or not enough stock anymore in the actual experience people are having?
Well, no, I think people are interested in the experience because whether or not you're dealing with a real external, phenomenon, regardless of, whether it's from outer space or man-made or, something natural, people are seeing something and they are being affected by it. And even if it is a figment of their imagination, a lot of these people had built belief systems around it. So regardless of, the reality of a circumstance, although the reality is very important as to whether or not we're being visited by extraterrestrials, but regardless, there is something to be learned. either way. Psychology can benefit from looking at the issue, or philosophy, or physics, geology, whatever the circumstance. Now, is it possible that we're dealing with some sort of psychic manifestation, as some people, from maybe the valet camp might believe, or interdimensional beings, perhaps? These are sort of alternatives to the extraterrestrial hypothesis. They may or may not be possible, but how do we establish that? How do we get the evidence to make those determinations? Do we just listen to people's accounts and collect anecdotes as the evidence of that reality? I don't know. That's I again, think that the physical evidence gathering is probably your best bet to answering some of the issues.
And I understand that every time you have a first-person experience that comes out, that there are three sides to that story. There's the person's side, who experienced it. There's the eyewitness side, and then there's the truth somewhere down the middle. And,
right.
You have to take everything with a grain of salt. But do you think today, because one thing I have noticed with a lot of researchers out there, they still love to hear the story, but they are so committed and so focused on getting disclosure or scientific evidence of proof that they have absolutely put the experiencer on the back burner. Do you think that's a right or wrong way to approach these investigations?
Not at all. And, me saying what I just said, in promotion of the science and what evidence would be sufficient for myself, that is in no way knocking people that have had experiences. I myself have had experiences. Now, what experience I had, I cannot tell you, and I can offer you no evidence. But it's still a part of me. It still has influenced me, and people, should respect the experience that somebody's had, as long as they're being honest. There are con men out there. There are people that, perhaps are delusional. But I think there are also genuine people out there that have had really unusual things happen because they were in close proximity to something that, we don't know what it was, something that was anomalous. And, finding out what that is important, but also recognizing that, if it will come down to the credibility of a person when we are left with accounts, that have little physical evidence to go along with them. And there are people out there that have had experiences that I have talked to and that others have talked to that they're either the best con person around, or they are genuine and sincere. And that's sort of subjective as to whether or not you'll accept somebody's, ideas or views or what you think of their stories. But, I always, unless somebody is overtly, crazy or a con man, I listen to people, and I respect, the idea that, they may have had something that weird happen to them. And I'm open to that possibility as well. I'm not saying there aren't aliens or anything, but I really want to know, and I really want to, I've been following this for 40 years now, and it's sort of been the same recounts of stories and the same, sensationalism over and over. But, I'd like to get down to, knocking out some of these things and trying to figure out what some of these things are. And if that takes disclosure, or if that takes field investigation, or, whatever, I guess other people feel the same way. it's not a big issue unless you're really into the issue, you know. But it's always fascinated me.
Come on, you haven't seen any aliens yet. You haven't gone on a date to the local, you know, Denny's or something along that line with a gray or a reptilian. I need some juice here, man. I need some juice. You're being way too straight on this. Way too straight. No, I'm teasing a little bit there. I agree. I agree. I honestly agree with the way you are doing your research, and you know, it's nice to hear a voice of reason in these topics, because so many people in this field absolutely have one way of thinking. That's their way of thinking. Nobody else is right. You're honestly, Mike, you're very refreshing. I'm not used to this.
Oh, well, thanks. Hey, I can get, I can get showman though too. You know, I am a UFO researcher. I'm not really a UFO investigator, so you know, I can get away with, just reading about it and writing about it every once in a while. But you know, I do consider myself a paranormal travel writer, and I do try to play up, some of the folklore and some of the thrill and wonder of some of these stories, because, you know, these stories are great. You know, ghost stories, Bigfoot stories, UFO stories, they are part of our North American, folklore and world folklore now, you know, and they're just fascinating and fun and visual and, strange. And, I love it. I love the subject. I love, talking about it and playing it up sometimes too. So if you want me to tell you some ghost stories or some monster stories, we can go into that here a little bit.
We will get into that here in the next 2 hours, because I want my audience to hear some great stories that you have covered. When it comes to the experiencers, and you've talked to a number of people who have had strange experiences, how do you go about telling whether or not they are telling the complete truth or they're feeding you some book of fiction?
Well, I think a lot of that is, before you meet somebody, and I've met a few people that have, like you said, a few people that have had experiences, but, I like to research a case, really heavily and see if there's anything unusual, if somebody's has mental issues or has had, a run-in with the law or whatever. That's probably the first sort of thing that you would check to see if somebody's got a good veracity. But meeting somebody in person, you can kind of tell if they're part of the, the machinery that, they're within the UFO cottage industry or not, and it's sort of their niche that they've filled within the culture. You can tell if somebody's a believer, or if somebody's kind of gone to the other end and, maybe has dropped off the delusional aspect of it, But I don't judge people. I try not to judge people. Everybody's, on their own path and has their own experiences. And who am I to say what other people have experienced, I guess it's a subjective sort of thing. Each of us, we'll look at a witness and choose to believe somebody or not. There are different people within the field of ufology that have groups of followers that others are, just shaking their heads at, like, why would somebody, follow this person or whatever. But, the culture does fill, some needs for different people with different backgrounds and ideas and viewpoints as to what the phenomena encompasses. I don't necessarily have to verify somebody. I mean, I try to validate people. I don't try to be a jerk, or whatever, and call people liars or anything like that, or call people names. But there's so many people within the field now that experiencers can coalesce with other experiencers, and they can get support from one another if they actually believe that they've had something happen to them, you know. So anyway.
I find it interesting that you say, you know, that you do have to take it with a grain of salt, because I agree, and that's what we try and do on this show. We have to take everything with a grain of salt in regards to these stories, because they do sound so unbelievable and so unknown. Do you think then, when it comes to skepticism of what is happening in this field, that sometimes people take skepticism a little too far, rather than maybe giving someone the benefit of the doubt?
Yeah, but I do think things are getting better. Now, what I mean by that is, yes, there traditionally throughout the field and history of ufology, there has been a class of not just skeptics, you know, people that, you know, required evidence, you know, to greater degrees, you know, beyond what has been accepted by, you know, mainstream ufology. What you really had was, you know, a debunking class, and debunkers are different than skeptics. You know, not to say that skeptics aren't debunkers or debunkers aren't skeptics, but, you know, a debunker is somebody engaging in, you know, rhetoric in order and bringing up alternative hypotheses, you know, of a ridiculous form perhaps, or nature, or, you know, their purpose is to provide an alternative to, you know, whatever alternative, you know, it promotes extraterrestrial or, you know, anything unusual. And yeah, there are degrees of people within the skeptical community that does that. A lot of ufology is done now online, in online groups, and you know, on social media, on Facebook, and, you know, places like that. And you know, there are skeptical groups, and there are scientific groups, and there are you know, your star seeds and your disclosurists, and, you know, you have a lot of these different camps, and some of them interact and interconnect with each other, you know, based upon different cases and group connections and whatnot. But you do have your hardline skeptics, and there are some people, you know, out there that will troll. And you know, it's a new form of debunker, you know, the troll debunker. And I'm sure a lot of people out there, you know, who've put things on certain groups of, you know, they may have noticed, you know, these people come out. Skepticism has its place. It surely has its place. Debunking, no, it doesn't have its place. You know, unless you're really trying to be absurd in order to demonstrate absurdity. But no, and I think if 95% out of 100 of our cases are IFOs, identifiable flying objects, then, you know, we definitely need to be more skeptical when we're dealing with all these cases. And we definitely need to recognize that we're dealing with different phenomena that have, you know, different levels of evidence, sufficiency of evidence in order to support whatever you're contending. And skeptics, a lot of these skeptics that are coming up now are coming at it from a scientific, philosophical standpoint, and they're wanting more evidence. They're wanting better evidence. They're wanting arguments to make more sense. They're wanting research to be better. You know, so they're actually, you know, not talking about the trolling debunkers, but there are skeptics out there that I think will probably help the field, because the field in a lot of ways has moved over to the believer side, and nobody can really deny that. You know, there's you know, all the conferences and whatnot that are going on sort of start with the notion that it's aliens everywhere. You know, so yeah, hopefully we can get to the science a little bit more, and hopefully skepticism can be embraced a little bit more instead of, you know, being made vilified. But yeah, debunking, And on the other extreme, there are the believers that believe everything. They believe every piece of clickbait, UFO, fake footage that's put out there every day by the hundreds, So two extremes that, I think if we can meet in the middle, we can probably, solve some of these problems out there.
I think you're the first person that has come on this show that says that skeptics are leaning towards the experience rather than the debunking style now. Do you think the debunkers are a combined force with a lot of these people who believe that there are disinformationalists out there creating a lot of these CGI movies to really mess with people in ufology?
Well, I mean, they're certainly out there, to make some money. That's why they put out these YouTube videos, because they get millions of hits and $2,000 here and there, and they get to demonstrate their technical video prowess. Are they disinformation agents? Well, it's quite possible. How would you prove that? Whenever people say stuff like that, it's like, well, I heard, it's like through whispers, like hidden source told me, so-and-so. I myself have been called a disinformation agent by a few people. I won't say any names, a few people notable in the community, because I might have had a different interpretation on a certain case, or, might have said the wrong thing about the wrong person at the wrong time, but I'm just a UFO junkie from Missouri. I'm sitting in my basement and, with my soda next to me and talking to you on the radio. I'm not from a government think tank or a secret establishment or anything like that. I'm just a regular schmo who travels to weird places with his kids, But it's interesting how, how these things, the passive-aggressive age of the internet, internet now, it's so easy to call people names and try to shut down discussions and arguments and unfriending and cutting people out of this group, that group, or whatever, there's a lot of paradrama going on out there in the virtual world within the community, and it's sort of interesting. I think it is demonstrative of some changes going on. There's definitely a lot of different camps that are wanting to see ufology change as we move into the 21st century. Different people with different ideas as to what we should be doing.
I think it's nice to have that clear mind, and that's what we try and do. Like with this show, I've been offered to go on so many different networks that are just ridiculous, or people trying to get an opinion, and especially in paranormal media, which I'll actually be speaking about at the Provincetown Paracon this weekend in Boston. Mm-hmm. There's too much of this, and I'm sure you would agree, as we only got about 2.5 minutes before we go to break here. But there's too much of this giving opinion as fact in this field. We talk about science, we talk about real research, and yet, for me, I see a lot of opinion. I don't see a lot of fact. Do you notice that as well?
I do notice that, and that's not to say that that's true of every researcher out there. There are good and there are bad. There are UFO celebrities and paranormal celebrities out there. That there are those that are into the sensational and the self-promotion aspect to it, and there are those out there that are legitimately looking to try to solve some of the anomalous questions. It's an interesting field out there. I definitely think that hello?
Yes.
Yeah. Did I lose you?
No.
Oh, okay.
We got you.
Sorry. Okay. I lost myself for a second there. Anyway, what were you saying? Sorry.
Well, just in regards to, there's a lot of people who are expressing their own opinion as scientific fact rather than doing scientific research on it.
Right. Yeah, and whose opinion is, better than another's, I mean, there are legitimate people out there that do the research, and their opinion is definitely worthy, of consideration. But yes, I would like to see us get back to, the symposium papers, with some meat behind them, it might be a little more boring, but I don't know. I find that aspect a little more interesting,
Absolutely. And we only have just about a minute or less before we got to go to break here. So Michael Huntington is our guest tonight. I highly suggest you check out his website, huntingtonstrangetravels.wordpress.com. I'm going to give that to you once again. huntingtonstrangetravels.wordpress.com. You can find all of his adventures that he has written about there. I highly suggest you do, because I think this is a pretty cool topic. And I really think that we actually found someone who has a pretty level head when it comes to research and what it's all about, and especially what it should be. That's the way it's supposed to go, isn't it? You're listening to Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. We're going to be right back right after this break with more UFO and ghost stories coming from Michael Huntington, our guest tonight. Coming September 29th to October 1st, the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon. Hi, this is Dave Scott. The event will be held at the Spruce Hill Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Come join us for an amazing weekend of speakers talking all things paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, aliens, Sasquatch, intuitiveness. Listen to great speakers like Miriam Delicato, Samantha Mowat, and the crypto guru, Ronald Murphy. Get your VIP passes by going to spacedoutradio.com and clicking on the Paracon banner. Come to BC, where the paranormal is waiting for you.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Hey, this is Canadian paranormal investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Have you had an experience you can't explain? Had a run-in with ghosts, maybe Bigfoot, or seen lights in the sky? Hi, I'm Mike Schmidt from the SOR Sightlines. I'm here to investigate your sighting. Head to spacedoutradio.com and fill out a report on the Sightlines. All your information is 100% confidential, and I will help you figure out what you've been seeing. File your report and let's find out the answers together.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. With their money-back guarantee and the many benefits, how can you afford not to get one? Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com for mind, body, and spirit, and expect a miracle.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
From British Columbia to Northern California, Pacific North Weird has Cascadia covered. Check out our feature videos at spacedoutradio.com, where I, Vincent Zunza, and my super sleuth partner Alexandra Sullivan track down the weird and strange stories from around the Pacific Northwest, from Bigfoot to Mel's Hole and everything in between. This is what makes life exciting. So why report the normal when we can report the Pacific North Weird right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Oh, there's only one way to rock. Loud and proud. In high definition. Radio 702 rocks. Las Vegas.
Every Saturday and Sunday night, as Dave Scott wanders aimlessly in the wilderness, you can come hang out with me, James Tyson, in Spaced Out Weekend. Starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, I'll take you along as we talk with some of the best experts in their fields. SpacedOutRadio.com is the place to find us. So sit down, relax, put your feet up. Enjoy the topics like the paranormal, supernatural, intuitiveness, and so much more. Hope to see you there.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you along for the ride. Tomorrow night on the program, Jennifer Weigel is going to join us. We're going to get into everything from paranormal media all the way down to spirituality, paranormal ghost hunts, and what is going on in the strange place we call Earth. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time is when we get going at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on our terrestrial radio stations, WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia. We're also live in New Orleans on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM, and spread over 160 countries around the world. Good to have you with us as well. Thank you so much. We're live on KTLK, the Fringe FM in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Bill Cardwell is back on the injured reserve, so birthday girl Gail Shirk, Captain Shirk we call her around here, has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Subdermatoglyphic. is the password for tonight. Make sure you use it wisely, space travelers, as we set the standard for passwords in the SOR Space Travelers Club. If you want to follow us on social media, be like John, be like Marcus, be like Eric, be like Deb, and use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with us live during the show. At Spaced Out Radio if you want to follow me as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, Player.fm, and Stitcher. Our website is SpacedOutRadio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. Check out our journalistic site, The Encounter Online, and if you go to Patreon.com, you can, for $1, become a patron of Spaced Out Radios. Tonight we are talking with Mr. Michael Huntington. Strange Travels, where he goes around checking out all of these weird, strange stories from across the United States. His website, huntingtonstrangetravels.wordpress.com. Mike, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you.
It's
so
great.
far, so good.
So far. I tell you, it's been a lot of fun. That first hour flew by, and here we are in hour number 2, kicking things off. Now, right before the break, we were talking about experiencers and whether or not the skeptics are riding them a little too hard and researchers are riding a little too hard. Do you ever have those moments where you throw on the tinfoil hat and say, man, there is some good conspiracy stuff here? Or do you try and keep as level-headed as you were showing us in that first hour?
Well, first off, I do try to get a big picture of what's going on, in ufology. So I do dip my feet. Well, sometimes I fully immerse myself into the, some of the strange conspiracies, associated with UFOs and other phenomena, and I also like political conspiracies as well. So I do run the full paranoia gamut. I don't believe every conspiracy, but that's not to say that some of those conspiracies are not true. I am certain that some of them are true. Something happened at Roswell. Something happened at the Kennedy assassination. There's a few of these. There's certainly MK Ultra, right? So there are conspiracies out there, and I'm fascinated by all of them. I think it's good, especially if you're keeping track of the cultural aspects of the field and the folklore aspects that you do. Research some of the stranger aspects, and perhaps even in some instances, celebrate them. A lot of these small towns, have these stories attached to them, and it's part of their local character and their local culture. Places like Point Pleasant, and where the Mothman was seen, and where they have a festival. Places like Kelly, Kentucky. Where the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter of 1955 occurred with, strange little pointy-eared creatures attacking a family at a farmhouse. These communities do have these stories attached to them, and I do like following the folklore and preserving the folklore and supporting, these stories and trying to record them and, share them with other people. Some stories are better than others, but the conspiracy theories are part of the big picture. They're part of the cultural landscape. Do I believe all of them? No, because I think a lot of them are, mutually exclusive. You can't have Nazi secret bases and reptilians, going on at the same time. Some of these conspiracies have to be not true just by the fact that they can contradict others. But has there been a lot of secret stuff going on with regards to UFOs within the government, within the intelligence community, within perhaps media? Certainly. Now, are these artifacts of the Cold War? Or is it, a secret cabal trying to prevent disclosure of, a reality that humanity is not ready for? Again, you have to look to the evidence, and you have to look to the veracity of people making those claims. And the evidence is by no means foolproof for a lot of these conspiracies. That's why they remain conspiracies, because they may have a lot of facts, but for one reason or another, possibly through some suppression in some instances, but they haven't risen to the level of acceptance. I do believe in some theories. Things like chemtrails, I don't know what to make of that. There's compelling evidence. 9/11, I don't necessarily, agree with truthers, but it's interesting to look at. Within UFOs, there's different, sort of cults and viewpoints within those, within the experiencer group, where they getting to that level of contact that very reminiscent of contactee movements, of the 50s and 60s. I try to keep up on all of it, and I try to remain unbiased, and I try to research it and look at it, from a sociological, anthropomorphic viewpoint. If it's way out there and really doesn't, if it's highly strange and it doesn't have supporting evidence. I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for, but I don't know. Conspiracies, some are better than others. I don't know. I have questions about all of them, but I do probably have opinions on all the different conspiracies.
Do you believe then that the governments of the world are hiding what they know about UFOs?
Well, that is going to come down to a personal viewpoint, always, and it almost takes a religious sort of aspect to it. Do you believe? Do you have this belief system in this, this story, this, not mythology in that it didn't occur, but in this, this narrative of government cover-up or world cover-up or, some sort of, secret cabal worldwide cover-up to deny people the truth of some sort of alien reality. I don't have any evidence to suggest that or see that. Certainly governments have been involved in covering things up and, manipulating certain aspects of the public, like I said, for purposes during, for the Cold War, or to hide weapons development or, different technology. But, this sort of accepted notion that that Roswell occurred, that, we do have crash flying saucers. We may very well, but I don't know. So, you're sort of living in two different worlds, actually many different worlds when you're immersed in this subject. There's, the reality of what could have happened versus the unreality of, what could have happened. And I'm fascinated either way. I've been to places like Pascagoula, Mississippi, where the famous UFO, the alien abduction occurred of the Hickson Parker abduction in 1973, where the two fishermen were taken off the banks by these robotic sort of creatures with giant claws and pointed ears or, pointed antenna. I've been to that location, and, I had to, it was one of the fascinating, just visually impactful cases when I was a kid, just seeing it and, the images from it and, remembering some of the documentaries at the time and the TV shows at the time that sensationalized, the case. I went there and there's the aspect of this could all be baloney. These guys have just been fooling somebody, or they may have hallucinated it somehow or whatnot. But there's always that part with all these cases that regardless of the evidence, unless something has been totally proven to be a fake case, they all carry with it that aspect of the mysterious that is compelling. What if you are standing in a spot or, looking at a place where something from another world, supposedly was, right there. You're sort of pulled in different ways. There's the rational side, to yourself that you want to, you don't want to be fooled and you don't want to become part of some, weird UFO cult. And then there's the other part of you that, it's like, okay, people are having some weird stuff going on, it'd be good to try to get close to, that if possible, if not to discover the mysteries behind it, but to, maybe try to experience it yourself, to try to get out there. Maybe just by being in some of these strange locations, you can expose yourself to, some of the unusual aspects, some of the anomalous parts of the world that keep it interesting and mysterious.
I got a question from Everett for you in the Space Out Radio chat room on our website. And he is asking, with little to no physical evidence available, how do we bring more true science into ufology?
That is a big question. Pretty much what you're saying is how do we get science to accept ufology, and how do we get ufology to accept science? Because it's sort of the same thing. Ufology is by definition, the study of UFOs, and it's not necessarily the identification of aliens, although that's sort of what it's become. But it's actually the study of UFOs, the phenomena, the people, the history, the movements, all the various aspects of it. And one aspect of it is how, the philosophical aspect of the field. How do we establish a methodology that provides evidence for claims? What is the best techniques for determining, evidentiary procedures, and how do we present that to academia and create a legitimacy of the study of the UFO subject? It is loaded down with a lot of, flying saucers, aliens, and all that sort of stuff. Decades of, cultural attachment, the giggle factor, and, sci-fi movies and all that. But I argue that, ufology is a field that is multidisciplinary, and, there are cultural aspects, historical aspects, philosophical aspects, many different aspects, just as there would be in any subject that has had an impact upon culture and history, women's studies, black studies, whatever. UFOs, undeniably, as a subject, as well as other paranormal subjects, have had an impact upon American culture and American history and politics and everything else. Look at our movies, look at our TV shows, look at some of our podcasts out there. But and the scientific part of it, what you really need to have is you need to have a movement. Ufology has sort of become this PR camp now, where, the purpose is to persuade the public, and it's done through, organizations or conferences or symposiums or TV shows, or podcasts, and online. And the communication is one of a persuasive nature to try to get people to accept what's, supposedly been established. But as I've argued before, it's not established. And if groups think that it's established, then, what's the point of having field investigations anymore? If we're just waiting for disclosure, why have groups? Well, we just need to wait, right? But we can't, because people are seeing things and there's stuff out there, and we want to go out there and we want to, find out what it is. And I argue that there's science to be done, and the way to get science involved is to do science and to be doing the scientific method, and to try to, have investigative techniques that are logical and rational in order to try to get evidence. We also need to push forward these philosophical arguments within academia to put forward the notion that, ufology is a legitimate field of study, because it does impact a lot of different things. And, the anomalous aspect part of it is definitely of interest to a lot of different fields of study. Atmospheric sciences, geological sciences might benefit from us doing studies of areas where there's, a localized collection of, anomalous phenomena. And we do know, and data can help us locate some of these places. We do know that there are certain areas that are frequented by, strange lights or orbs or, balls or even other associative phenomena, and if we can get some equipment out there, maybe we can, do some science that we can present to science. And thus, we also need more peer-reviewed papers. We need people to, within the field to present their evidence outside of ufology, into other academic realms, so that we can fight that fight that needs to happen. Ufology, if it's going to be accepted by science, it needs to first do science and behave that way, and focus on seeing how we can become more legitimate, more professional.
Do you believe then that the scientists who are looking into this are close to getting those mainstream scientists ready for what is actually happening out there? Because I think of something that Stephen Hawking said recently, where he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that as humans we should be careful what we send up into space for signals, because we don't want to be invaded if they can get here. That also puts aliens in a very negative connotation as well. Do you believe something like that from somebody like Stephen Hawking? Or do you believe that maybe he's just being a little naive on the subject?
Well, I guess you have to try to consider what his intent was by saying something like that. Is he putting forward, a mental exercise to get you to think, which is a possibility, to get you to think about, other life on other worlds and how things would need to change here, and how to get people thinking about, other civilizations, or if he's alluding to something, that he knows some sort of secret that the rest of us don't know. And there are people that do believe that there have been little disclosures, culturally, little things have been put out here and there, over the decades to try to prepare us, to get us used to the idea of weird creatures and other beings. It's a possibility. I think you could probably talk to somebody like Robbie Graham, who has written extensively on the history of the military working with the media in order to sort of manipulate the public with regards to the issue. I think there is that aspect there, but it's not really one long string, you know. It's not really a continuous string of conspiracy and suppression, because a lot of the people at different times, they're gone and dead and have no power anymore, So I think you probably have maybe little disclosures here and there, which you may or may not be able to trust, and you have different players. I don't know if Stephen Hawking knows anything I don't, but I guess he's probably one of the few people on the planet that probably would know, right? If there's something out there that can threaten us, and surely nobody can disagree with what he said. If there are aliens out there, yeah, they might not be something that we want to talk to. Send our phone number out there too.
I have a question coming in from Ron, and he has said, Mike, have you ever been harassed in any way from people or organizations because of what you investigate or share?
No. I go on trips, and I take pictures, and I put pictures on blogs, and I try to make them look nice and add stories to them, add little articles, because that's what I want to do. I'm a travel writer. I will take a lot of these and probably put them into a book, and maybe put it out there one day, or try to get a job writing about some of these different things. But yeah, I just like visiting these different locations. And I'm sorry, what was his question again? I'm sorry, I lost myself.
Not a problem. I can repeat it. Just asking if you've ever been harassed in any way by any people or government organizations.
No, because I'm not really anybody that's been out there challenging any big organizations or anything like that. Been active on a few different groups and on the radio occasionally, but I think a lot of people agree with maybe some of my criticisms of some of the maybe some of the ways things are done. I haven't had any harassment by really anybody, other than being called a disinformation agent a couple times, but it's just sort of online trolls and stuff, I guess.
You mentioned criticism. Do you think the paranormal field is worthy of the amount of criticism it gets?
Well, it's just regular people, for the most part, right? That are interested in different things that maybe they've experienced, different things that interest them. So it's hard to be hard on anybody, I mean, it'd be like being hard on myself. I'm just a regular guy too, that's interested in the subject, and all these subjects. No, I think you can be hard on the people that are trying to be exploitative, maybe, and you can see those people if they're just out there trying to, they're making stuff up, and they're on that path of trying to, get a show or something, or sell something, that's probably people that you can be critical of. Experiencers, real believers, people, I don't think you can be critical of those people, because, unless they're faking it. But if they genuinely believe it, then that's what they're going to believe. And, for them, the evidence is not something that is necessary. It's not about sufficiency. It's not really a necessity for somebody who experiences, the unusual. I think it does benefit if people are interested in gathering evidence, because I think everybody out there is, if they're active, if they're going out to like a haunted house with equipment, or they're going out to a field with equipment, to look for something, then those are the people that should be interested in, Okay, what are you doing? What equipment are you using? What are you trying to find? What are you trying to get? You know, I think those people should be interested in criticisms of professionalism or, you know, proper methodology, and making sure that bias doesn't, you know, creep into any evidence gathering. But that's something that you can encourage more so than being critical. You know, try to encourage people to, you know, if they're going to investigate something, you know, to do it in a proper way and get the right equipment.
Let's learn about some of the stories that you have investigated. And going through your website, I have to say, this one would be phenomenal. And I would like to get there to actually be a part of this. But you traveled down to Paget Switch near Irving, Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people who don't know what that railroad crossing is, explain what it was like when you were there and what the hidden secret behind that is.
Well, yeah, just a little bit outside of Mobile, Alabama, is a little road next to a gas station, and it has a railroad crossing. And surely something interesting happened there. Aside from what I'm about to tell you, supposedly a ghost story is connected with that area. And, you know, the story is sort of found throughout the folklore of many towns, you know, the old story of a school bus full of children, you know, getting smashed at that intersection. There's really no evidence to suggest that it's true, but supposedly that train track was haunted, and sometimes you can hear a school bus, you can hear children or whatever, but we did not go there for that purpose. We went there, and I got out at the gas station, and I went to the other side of the track, and I had my wife drive across so that I could take a picture from the correct angle of our car in the same position as Neary's yellow truck from the movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which is where that location, parts of it were in a studio, parts of it were actually a miniature, but also parts were at that actual spot where you see the truck being driven and the mailboxes shaking there. So it's an iconic, you know, film location, and there's Close Encounters of the Third Kind was the film, and it was filmed there around Mobile, and there's a lot of other locations from that film around the area that we visited when we were down there traveling, and able to get our geek vibe on, you know, Close Encounters style by visiting a lot of these places. That was a great place to find. It's one of my favorite movies, and definitely it was neat to visit that spot.
Did it take you back in the movie to be there? Because that is such, like, to me, Close Encounters is still the number one movie. It's 40 years old, but in my opinion, it is still the number one alien storyline movie out there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's definitely, it's in my top, you know, one or two. You know, it goes back and forth between, you know, some other films, but, yeah, that definitely, I saw it when it came out, and I saw it when it was re-released, you know, with the extra stuff in it, and, you know, I've been watching it ever since. What was really surreal is we went down there, Fairhope, Alabama, which is not too far, where the house with the little boy, you know, from the movie, the real house is there.
Right.
And when we got out to take some pictures, you know, where they filmed those scenes, Robbie got out of the car and was running around the house. So I was literally finding myself at the Close Encounter house, chasing after a boy, you know, through the same area where she went chasing after her kid after he was following the lights at night, you know. So that was sort of surreal.
That had to be interesting. Here, you like talk about flashbacks on the movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right.
You know, but in the end, in that area, do they still, after 40 plus years, still get a lot of tourists going up to that railroad track?
I'm not sure about the railroad track. Definitely the two houses that we visited. We visited Neary's house, and when I pulled into that to take pictures of the house, the house where the guy threw the plants through the window and built the mashed potato, mountain, that house is in Mobile, and when we got out, I got out to take pictures. Pretty much everybody in the neighborhood came outside because I guess it is like protected property, for their neighborhood. Whoever lives there, I think probably, doesn't like a lot of tourists coming through. So they probably have a neighborhood watch around that house, to protect the house from, the movie Close Encounters, which, I thought that was kind of interesting. But, and as soon as we left, as soon as I started getting back in the car, everybody, went back inside. But there was 15 people out there while I was taking pictures. And I made sure I didn't go into the property, But I guess they were making sure I wasn't as well.
Well, what's funny is, I understand the neighborhood watch, you have to be protective because people, not everybody's just there to take a picture. There are people who have to try and steal grass clippings or maybe a tree or something. And I'm pretty sure they've probably had a few trees over the years thrown in the back window. Just people thinking it's funny, but in the end, you move into a territory like that or an area like that with such a famous household, that is something you do have to kind of expect.
Yeah, I think it comes with it, and I think, everybody kind of recognizes that, and they just kind of deal with it. It's interesting that their lives are sort of affected by a movie, from decades ago, and it's, in a daily way, perhaps,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let's move on here. I want to find a good ghost story that you have to tell us here. I'm feeling some ghostly power coming in.
A good ghost story. Well, I mean, I've been to, I've been to the Exorcist house in St. Louis, which was the house that was where the original Exorcist supposedly occurred back in the 40s. I've been to Bobby Mackey's Haunted Music Hall, which is also called the Gates to Hell. I've been to Lunt Mansion in St. Louis, also one of the most haunted places, McPike Mansion in Alton, Illinois. A lot of different haunted graveyards and spooklight locations. I was at the Crescent Hotel recently. It's one of the most haunted hotels there. I guess I think there's a story here in Cape, not too far from where I'm at. There's a road that goes just south of Cape called Bloomfield Road. And the road goes, I think, all the way back to maybe the late 1700s, when the land originally was south of Cape, owned by, I think, the Spanish, and then later the French, but it's an old road. But, this road just south of us here is, it actually has like a Headless Horseman story, where, people would, see, and every town sort of has this, this Lover's Lane Headless spooklight character that is either an Indian that's lost his head or a soldier or somebody who's been killed. But we have a Headless Horseman story out there, as well as I think Mad Mary is a cackling ghost that is also heard down along that road. Teenagers, if they pulled into nearby Mount Tabor Park, which is it's not there anymore. But back in the 60s and 70s, I guess if you would pull over and scream out loud or flash your lights 3 times, you would hear Mad Mary cackle, her maniacal laugh, or maybe see the spook light heading down Bloomfield Road from the Headless Horseman with his lantern looking for his lost head. There's a lot of those sort of stories around here. Also along that road, people have seen Confederate and Confederate armies as well as Union armies as this road was used during the Civil War. A lot of different troops on both sides traveled along it. And supposedly the folklore contends that sometimes you can hear horses, across the farm fields here in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Beauty of hauntings is that they are everywhere. Doesn't matter where you
Indeed.
go. It's just a matter of whether or not the old folklore gets to the public to create that sensationalism that a lot of ghost hunts tend to go on. Have you ever been to a place where, you had a lot of hype going into it, and then you got there and you were like, oh, that's it? We drove all this way for that?
Well, I haven't really had, like I said, any ghostly experiences. I did get a weird, creepy vibe when we were at Bobby Mackey's Haunted World, well, certainly the Haunted World Music Hall, which is, supposedly one of the most haunted spots in the country. I'm not really let down, so to speak, because I still relish in the folklore, the different tales of ghosts. Like recently at the Crescent, I decided to take my boys and my wife inside of the Crescent, and I'd already been on the tour before, but I showed them some of the locations of where some of the ghosts supposedly lived. There's a ghost of a Irish worker named Mike who was building the Crescent back in I guess 1885, and he fell while he was working from the 4th floor down, I think through 2 different floors, and he landed in what is now called room 218, and that room is allegedly haunted by him. He'll move stuff around. He'll put bags against the door. He'll especially harass. I guess he was a ladies' man at one time, so he'll especially harass, like females that are in the room. But I took my family and we went to that room when we were there recently. We didn't really experience anything, but it's still interesting to hear the tales, just associated with this one room that looks like any other room.
Let's get back to a UFO story here, because you got so many good ones around here. You went on a little trek to visit Robbie and the Rock from Mars. Tell us that story.
Well, I think that's one of my WordPress articles. That's I think when we went to I guess it was the Space Museum in Bonne Terre, Missouri. We visit a lot of these roadside attractions, these little museums.
You still there?
Are you there?
Did you drop your phone there for a second?
Hello?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, I'm here. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I guess we're back in. No, we visit a lot of little roadside attractions and whatnot, and I think that is Robbie got to touch a piece of Mars, maybe. I think that was actually up at the St. Louis Science Center, I think, where he got to touch a piece of Mars. We visit a lot of these space and aviation museums, and Robbie got to, I think he's touched maybe like 3 moon rocks, 3 Mars rocks, and I think he's got to touch some moon dust as well. So
it is very interesting when you look at that piece of rock on Mars. Do you ever think, man, do we really maybe have people there, or have we been there before? Do those questions cross your mind?
Yeah. Do we have people there now? I think that's sort of a hot discussion right now. The secret space program. Have we been fighting secret battles on other planets, or whatever? I don't really know how to answer that. I have studied the Martian pyramids in Cydonia pretty extensively, and it is interesting. It's definitely intriguing. It's definitely anomalous, some of the features, but there's not really anything to suggest that there's been any big civilizations on Mars. I know there are people that put out videos and pictures daily of, they'll take some of the NASA feed photographs, and they'll alter it a little bit, or they'll change the contrast in order to find different sort of shapes or whatever. But I don't know. I think a lot of that is sort of pareidolia, sort of you're sort of seeing it in your mind. So do I entertain the possibility that maybe there was a civilization? Yeah, I think that would be awesome. I grew up reading Arthur C. Clarke and all the good science fiction writers of the time, and surely there will be Martians one day, but I don't know if we've had any yet.
Before we go any further into the field of ufology and where you visited, Deb has a question at #SpacedOutRadio about the paranormal stories and where you visited. She is asking, what type of feeling do you get when you feel paranormal? Does your hair stand up? Do you get nauseous? What do you go through, if anything?
Well, I'm not an empath or a clairvoyant, or a psychic. When I say I've been into like a weird spot and I get creeped out, it's probably from, maybe doing a little bit too much research, hearing, creepy stories. And if you're in the actual spot where something happened under the right circumstances, where it's dark and kind of weird and creepy, you can, you get this wash of, weird, unnatural fear where, you think, okay, maybe reality itself will, kind of mess with you, and maybe you'll see something or experience something at one of these places. But I don't know. Certainly I guess your hair stands on end, but I think we can kind of make ourselves afraid of a lot of these locations. I guess if you want to know if I can detect anything, or if I have some sort of intuitive feelings, I don't. But I do get a thrill. I'm definitely kind of hyped up, especially after if you travel for a few hours and you're at this kind of weird, interesting spot. I'm sort of I got a little bit of energy, and I'm excited, and looking forward to taking pictures and kind of looking at things and trying to figure out where different things happened.
Corrine is asking, what's the weirdest thing that has ever happened to you while going to any of these locations?
Well, I have had anomalies show up on photographs, like I've said. I've been to the Marley Woods a couple of times. The secret location in south central Missouri, which is sort of like Missouri's Skinwalker Ranch. There's a certain area where a lot of anomalous activity had taken place throughout the late 90s and I guess pretty much up till now. And it was investigated by Ted Phillips and some researchers a few years back. I've been to that place a few times, and I've got some interesting things on photograph. Nothing that I can really identify or be conclusive about. It's not really going to be evidence of anything because it could just as easily, be a digital artifact or an anomaly. Also at the Crescent Hotel, I did get an interesting anomalous photograph of something that looked like a figure, but again, that's sort of going to be subjective. The weirdest thing physically that's ever happened to me was I went into a haunted cemetery, Carpenter Cemetery, just north of Sykeston, Missouri, in southeast Missouri. And, I went in there with a full battery, full on my camera, ready to take some good pictures. And I had, a battery drain almost instantaneous, the minute I stepped into the cemetery. And apparently people have that phenomena happen to them. Paranormal researchers will attribute it to some being from another plane, drawing energy, electrical energy, I guess, from, devices in order to manipulate or manifest or, interact, I guess, with you or whatever. But that's the only thing that I've had. I haven't had any, scratch marks or things slap me or, anything overt at any of these places. Just some creepy feelings and a few weird things in some photos.
When you get some strange things in photos, how do you analyze them? How do you go over to make sure that it isn't trickery from your camera or something along those lines?
Well, I think it depends on what you have, how convincing it is, whether it's truly anomalous, if it looks like it's, what you think it looks like. Yeah, and then you show it to somebody else, and they'll dismiss it or they'll critique it. But like I said, there's a lot of UFO research and investigation going online, as well as the other paranormal fields. And there's a lot of groups out there that certainly there's clickbait and there's a lot of fake stuff, but there's also groups for Bigfoot photographs and UFO photographs and ghost photographs where sometimes it's not fair. Sometimes people will pile on and not be fair with each other, but there's some good groups out there that will give you positive feedback or negative feedback, but they'll be rational about it. They'll tell you why it's an artifact, because most of the stuff that you're seeing photographic wise that are anomalous are artifacts, lens flares. It's not a globe flying around. If you're shooting it's not an orb. If you're shooting directly into the sun, you can figure out by the positions of different things whether or not it's a lens flare, if it's light reflections, off the inside of the lenses of your camera. A lot of that stuff is readily identifiable. Some stuff, like it could be pareidolia where you're just seeing things. A lot of Bigfoot type stuff is that people will take pictures of trees and forests, and and it's almost like finding the Bigfoot. It's like a Where's Waldo sort of thing. Some people will see, and some people will not. So photographs ultimately are soft evidence. It's not really hard evidence. It may be true. It may be something anomalous, and maybe even something extraterrestrial. But you're only going to go so far. Even if people are able to exclude, the mundane digital CGI, all the rational stuff. You're still that's about as far as you can get, unless you can get a place where there's repeatability, where you can photograph these weird things over and over and over and over. And if that's the case, then, you can bring out other equipment and be more scientific and try to get it on different wavelengths and, use better cameras and better equipment.
We got time to sneak in Craig's question here. We only got about 2 minutes left before we go to break. Craig is asking, what would it take for you, Mike, to get conclusive evidence?
Conclusive evidence of...
Well, you
of
said
what?
you photographed anomalies that you're not sure of.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, all of these different fields, you're ultimately left with, sufficient proof would probably be like a piece of alien spacecraft or an alien, or, some sort of physical effect that at least points to, some sort of anomalous occurrence taking place, that is worthy of investigation. Ultimately, you're going to want, as much physical evidence as possible. A Bigfoot body would be great to prove Bigfoot. A ghost in a bottle would be great to prove ghosts, if you're looking for proof, if you're requiring evidence, if you are trying to verify something, the reality of something once and for all. And, I don't know if that'll ever happen with, these various phenomena that are all sort of interconnected. But, that's what you're ultimately striving for. Now, as far as UFOs, some of those UFOs might be some sort of natural phenomena that we don't know about, earth lights or buoyant plasmas. Science has discovered all kinds of interesting things going on in the atmosphere, sprites and all those weird things, the high atmosphere electronic phenomena, So,
on that note, I'm going to get you to hold on because we got a break coming in here on Spaced Out Radio. Our guest tonight, Michael Huntington. His website, huntingtonstrangetravels.wordpress.com, telling us all about the travels of investigating the strange and the weird that lie across our planet, and the stories that have been told about that. During our break, make sure you check out spacedoutradio.com, where we got some really cool features for you to check out. We're going to be revamping a few things as well on the website coming up here. It's going to be a lot of fun. Make it more interactive. We're looking to add more. And check out our Paracon as well, the Caribou Paracon, October 29th. Make that September 29th to October 1st. You can check that out as well for more information. We'll be right back right after this. Looking for a great weekend getaway this fall? Hi there, this is Dave Scott. Come on up to the heart of British Columbia for the first annual Spaced Out Radio Caribou Paracon, being held at the Spruce Hills Spa and Resort in 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Speakers from all over North America are coming to discuss Bigfoot, UFOs, ghosts, and intuitiveness for the 3-day event, September 29th to October 1st. For more information, go to spacedoutradio.com and click on the Caribou Paracon banner and book your tickets today. Come to BC, where the paranormal is waiting for you.
The SOR Sightlines is a place for you to find answers to your strange experiences. Hi there, this is Mike Schmidt. If you have had an encounter with ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot, ETs, or anything else that doesn't make sense, head to spacedoutradio.com and file a Sightlines report. All information you give is 100% confidential, and I will personally help you find the answers you need. SOR Sightlines, your answers are a click away.
Have you got your Cosmic Passport? If you need one, tune in to Cosmic Passport on Spaced Out Weekend. This is Elizabeth Anglin, ET experiencer, spirit medium, and host of Cosmic Passport. Each weekend I'll be bringing you interviews and support from other paranormal experiencers, and the best in intuitive spiritual guidance from across the globe. It's all happening starting at 9 p.m. Pacific Time, midnight Eastern, on spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4COP. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is your medium, Joanna, from Spaced Out Weekend, 2 mediums and a large. I would love it if you would come and join us with host James Tyson every other Sunday on Spaced Out Weekend. Together, we will take your calls and your questions live. Our goal is to provide you with a positive outlook on deep questions that you may have. Questions regarding love, relationships, money, or whatever else is on your mind. Come and check us out at spacedoutradio.com.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories. From alien encounters to the latest conspiracies, you won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Patrolling the Pacific Northwest, we are always on the lookout for the strange and unassuming stories that real people are experiencing. Hi, I'm Vincent Zunza from Pacific North Weird. Me and Alexandra Sullivan have teamed to bring to you those odd stories that never seem to make it into the mainstream. Stories so weird that will leave you scratching your head wondering, is this real? It's as real as it gets with Pacific North Weird. You can watch our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
Strange creatures lurking in the night, the sounds of wood knocking in the forest, odd happenings right out of a fictional world. These are the reports I love. Hi there, this is author Ronald Murphy, and I would love it if you join me and Spaced Out Radio host Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month on our journey into the unknown land of cryptozoology at spacedoutradio.com. From Mothman to Frogman and everything in between. Hey, they don't call me the crypto guru for nothing.
Did you know that Spaced Out Radio runs 7 days a week? Hi, it's James Tyson from Spaced Out Weekend. Every Saturday and Sunday night, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, you can join me and my guests for some great chatter about what's going on out in the universe, or even in that dark part of the basement you really don't want to go back into. Well, let's find the answers to your experiences together. So come on up to Uncle Jimbo's cabin on the weekend. For more information, look us up at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back for the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Good to have you with us as we kick off a brand new week here on Spaced Out Radio. Tomorrow night on the program, we're getting deep into the spiritual and paranormal. Jennifer Weigel is going to join us for the first 2 hours. Corrine de Winter, I'm efforting to get her for hour number 3 as we talk spirituality right through the show, paranormal, how it all ties together. We might get into a little paranormal media as well, since that's what I will be speaking on this coming weekend in Provincetown, Massachusetts for the Provincetown Paracon. I'm looking forward to traveling. Uncle Jimbo James Tyson will be in the cabin Wednesday through Monday. I will be back the following Tuesday, the 16th, to get back into the hot seat of the cabin. I can't wait. This is an exciting weekend for me coming up. I'm looking forward to it. 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time, we get going tomorrow night at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in our terrestrial radio stations. WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We're also live in New Orleans on 107.7 FM, the United Public Radio Network, and spread over 160 countries around the world. We're live on KTLK, The Fringe FM. We're also live in Las Vegas on Renegade Talk Radio, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. Captain Gail Shirk filling in for an injured Bill Cardwell tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club when it comes to the password. Subdermatoglyphic. Subdermatoglyphic is your password. Make sure you read it wisely and use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the password is set each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Hey, if you're on social media right now, you could follow me on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect with me live during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download this show and others on iTunes. We're also on RadioGuide.fm, TalkStream Live, Player.fm, and Stitcher. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including joining the SOR Space Travelers Club for $5 a month. You can also read up on all of the paranormal news of the day on the Encounter Online. And if you head on over to patreon.com, for as low as $1 a month, you can become a patron of Spaced Out Radios as well. For the final time tonight, we introduce Michael Huntington. Now, this guy, if you missed the first 2 hours, he takes his family all over America trying to find the weird and the strange stories to say, well, basically, that he's been there. I love this story. The traveling must be interested. His wife may not like it, but it keeps Mike going, and she's supportive in his fascination with all of this. So, Mike, welcome back.
Hello.
We're going to mention your website once again if you want to read his stories. HuntingtonStrangeTravels.wordpress.com. I'll repeat that once again. HuntingtonStrangeTravels.wordpress.com if you want to check it out. Now, Mike, I got a question from the audience just to start things off here, and this one comes from Bob. Bob is saying, Mike, have you ever had any personal stories or interviews on or off the record with police or security types about these strange events?
Yes, I've had conversations with people that are reluctant, to come forward with their stories. Not really any big cases. Maybe the Cape Girardeau UFO crash. I've had people. I am in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and allegedly in April of 1941, we had our own Roswell-like saucer crash here that predated Roswell, but, sort of the same story template, the flying saucer crashes on a rural farmer's field, and, there's some aliens that the government comes in and scoops up and swears everybody to secrecy. But that's been a story that has been in this community and actually the region around here, for multiple decades. And I occasionally, because people know what I do, what I'm interested in, I will get people that, will first off, they'll tell of their own personal encounters. A lot of different places around here have been pretty active at different periods back in 1973, Southeast Missouri was a real big hotspot. Even people like Jalen Hynek came down here to investigate the Piedmont sightings and the Grand Tower UFO sightings and all the different sightings during that time period that became part of the Brushy Creek UFO scare, as it was called. So, I'll get people that, were there during that time period, like in Piedmont, and they recounted, seeing something. I will get people that will occasionally reference the Cape Girardeau UFO crash, not really firsthand people, although I did have a guy that claimed to have pieces, but he might have, some issues. But, people recounting different, secondhand stories or third-hand stories of the crash that took place near here, allegedly. And I'm interested in it as part of the folklore, but also interested to hear more. Interested in seeing what the truth is behind it. Did something strange crash here? Was it experimental, or are we confusing plane crashes? It's a mystery that perpetuates, and it definitely intrigues me, and especially the stories that are nearby me in southern Illinois and southeastern Missouri. I definitely, because I can get in my car and be there, within an hour or two. Some of these interesting spots.
Let's move on to one of these stories that you have visited. You visited the Grand Tower in Illinois, the power plant UFO sightings of 1973. Before we get to your experience, if you could just break down what that story was all about.
Okay, well, as I said, 1973 across the United States, and especially in certain parts of Missouri in this area, we had what's called a flap or a wave, which is a large number of sightings, by hundreds of people in some instances. In Piedmont in 1973, hundreds of people at the local drive-in theater there, saw a UFO. And part of that that whole tapestry of stories that occurred in 1973 was just across the river. I'm on Cape Girardeau, down the Boot Heel, right on the Mississippi River. Illinois is just east of me here, and east of here, just a little bit north, in the Illinois town of Grand Tower, which is also on the river. There was an interesting sighting in 1973 that took place during this, and it took place actually on two nights, March 22nd, and later it was a repeat performance, April 16th of 1973. And you had the power plant over there, which is the Central Illinois Public Service, also known as the CIPS power plant. I think they convert coal and acts as a substation, and they have the big towers and all that. The fields of all the different power equipment and generators and whatnot. And on this night, a couple of the workers, actually, it was Oscar Wills, was the first to notice a large object in the sky above the power plant that was a flying saucer, but it was also kind of like a donut. It was more like a wedding ring. It had an opening in the center, and it was hovering, and I guess moved into position close to the power plant. The witnesses were actually in the town, which is just a little bit south of the plant, but they made their way to the plant. One worker called the other worker, Willis Hughes, who was, I guess, one of the plant managers, and so there were multiple witnesses of this object over this power plant on these different nights, all while the entire region was experiencing all these different craft. And I guess on one of these occasions, we're not sure if it's the first or the second or maybe both, but supposedly military jets chased this object away from the power plant. People have the notion that the craft was somehow maybe siphoning energy off from the power plant, and you had to chase it off. But, that's an interesting story that is sort of unexplored, but definitely part of this, this large wave that I think is deserving of, a little more historical significance. Now, Grand Tower is a plethora hotspot of paranormal activity. It's not just UFOs. That town, has ghost stories. That town has Bigfoot encounters, weird portals, haunted houses, strange sounds. Weird occurrences on the river. There's sort of like vortexes and places where electronic equipment cut out. There's also a feature in the middle of the river called the Tower Rock, which is an ancient native site that was off limits, and it may have one time even held a cross at the top of it at the time of the conquistadors. And the town of Grand Tower, aside from all this other strange stuff, it was, the history is filled with, Indian massacre tales and pirates. It was a pirate camp at one time where river traffic was attacked. A lot of the ghost stories extend out of that. The Murfreesboro Mud Monster, which is a type of Bigfoot, was seen and supposedly left tracks in this little town. So, when I'm interested in an old story, in this story, it's interesting, but it's not. It's okay. It's a good story. It's good to know. It's not going to prove anything or dissuade anybody from their viewpoints. But this small town on the Mississippi, which is frequented by floods, it's been called the unluckiest town in America by Time magazine at one time because of the flooding. Little towns like this and their folklore are going to disappear as these towns disappear. So I like traveling, especially to these little towns that they have a lot of weird occurrences going on in one location. I like to go in there and record those. And the Grand Tower UFO case is one of those. And I can't go over there in southern Illinois and drive by that tower drive by Grand Tower, past the power plant without, picturing a giant flying saucer flying above it, sucking up energy.
There is always this great mystery through the 60s, 70s, and even into the 80s about these UFOs flying over nuclear power plants and flying over nuclear missile silos and shutting them down. It's a weird phenomena. In your estimation, have you ever looked into that, part one? And part two of that question would be, what do you think the purpose of that would be?
Well, I've read probably just as much as anybody else. I by no means, Leslie Keene or anybody like that, an expert on the minutia details of, a lot of these governmental military cases. They are intriguing. They're definitely intriguing. And I think evidence does suggest that there was something that occurred at least at a few of these bases that, affected the electromagnetics of, the equipment there. One way, that's the best neutral way that you can say it. Now, if it's extraterrestrial, people suggest that it's, the ETs demonstrating that, hey, we can do this and we don't like your nuclear power, used in this sort of way, so we can shut you down and we can demonstrate that to you. Or it could be, secret stuff that we're testing or have tested, or maybe our enemy countries at during the Cold War. Maybe they tested stuff. Surely, if we have some sort of stealth technology, some sort of secret platform craft that can hover and turn invisible or remain stealthy, which is a distinct possibility. Surely we would use it to test the various our military as well as other countries' militaries. But we also may be dealing in some cases with some sort of natural phenomena. Maybe there's some sort of electromagnetic plasmic phenomena in certain areas that can interact with electronic equipment and cause them, maybe what officers in some of these cases were seeing was some sort of earth light that is putting out electromagnetic fields that are strong enough to affect equipment. Supposedly all that stuff is shielded, though, and how you would shut that stuff down, that's it's of concern. If something like that did happen, it is certainly of concern, security-wise. But yeah, something definitely may have happened in a couple of those instances. I couldn't tell you, which one it is. I think Minot probably definitely something occurred, and there's a number of military. Iran, Tehran, there was probably definitely something anomalous there. Definitely. I don't know what that means, but something anomalous occurred there that was unexplainable. So,
let's move on to another one here, because you also visited the Cairo JC's flying saucer stunt of 1950. Now, there's a lot of people, I haven't even heard of this. I would love for you to break this one down.
Okay, well, 1950, Cairo, Illinois, similar to Grand Tower, not in peculiar things happening, although just like any other town that, they have their haunted houses and their weird things going on. But Cairo is located on the very bottom part of Illinois, where the Ohio River and the Mississippi River meets. So, as you can imagine, it's been subject to a lot of flooding over the different decades. But at one time, it was pretty prosperous before it suffered a lot of damage and businesses leaving. It's sort of a ghost town now, but in the 50s, it was a river port at Two Rivers meeting, and it was pretty prosperous back then, and it was pretty Americana. Everybody was sort of that stereotypical 1950s culture where mom stayed home and dad went bowling, and you read about the Rooskies in the newspaper, and the kids checked out the Buck Rogers serials and read comic books with aliens and such on them. Now, there was a lot of stuff going on in 1950, just not too far before the events here in this town occurred. The famous McMinnville case happened up there in Oregon. That was all over the newspapers at the time. But I wish I could give you a sighting for this Cairo incident, but what it was actually a hoax. And a hoax in the sense that somebody built a fake flying saucer that, they put on the in front of the local post office, and they put people in military uniforms standing there next to it, and sort of waited, as the people driving through the town, word spread, and people sort of wondering, okay, is that a flying saucer? What are all these military guys? But it proved to be not a prank, but a promotional gimmick by the local JCs to promote their I guess, a minstrel show that they were having, some sort of fundraiser event. But it went all throughout the region. It was in all the papers, and the military actually had to respond to it back then. So a little story that wasn't really documented, and again, I like to mind these little stories because there's actually a couple of different places that have that same story. Where there's other JC groups in other towns during that same time period sort of did this the same thing. And these things are also part of ufology, even the hoaxes, even the fake stuff and the campy stuff. They should be judged correctly as such, but they're part of the story because hoaxes and fakes and things that have moved the culture and society are all part of this. This perpetuated that idea within the region of military covering stuff up, and this is 1950. So events like this sort of reinforce that idea that maybe the government's covering stuff up, and it went back as far back as then, which I find kind of intriguing. But I think these things also perpetuated those notions. These little these little community ideas of alien encounters. That's Kairos. But incidentally, some people did report actual UFOs not too far after. I think just a few weeks after. And if you can go back and you can look through reported cases to like NICAP and some of the other groups back then. A few weeks later, I believe, somebody saw the real thing. Now, I don't know if anybody believed them after, the stunt that was pulled, but it's an interesting little story. And, a lot of people in Cairo didn't even know about it, and which I think is good because Cairo definitely needs to embrace its history and, make sure these things don't get lost.
Let's move on to another one here. Joplin and Seneth spook lights. What the hell is this?
Well, those are two different places. Joplin, Missouri is located all the way on the other side of Missouri from where I'm at. It's down there in the southwestern portion of the state, bordering Oklahoma, and I think Kansas is right there, and Arkansas is not too far. But it's a little area over there, pretty much just opposite where I'm at. Seneth is a small town located in the southern part of the Boot Heel, which is that little notch in the bottom of Missouri. Way down there in the bottom left-hand corner is actually a series of three towns, and in the middle of these three towns, Seneth and Hornersville and Arbid, is a road. And there's also a road in Joplin, which actually goes into Oklahoma. And throughout many towns in America, and presumably in other places, these are spook light roads. And what they are is, and I mentioned spook light earlier, the headless horseman with the lantern sort of type thing. Joplin and Seneth both have east-west spook light roads, and people claim to see glowing orbs, maybe about the size of baseballs or basketballs, going up and down these roads. And when they come in proximity to automobiles, the automobiles tend to be affected. But I did a study of using a map locators and Google Maps, and I went out to Seneth actually and did some field stuff out there to try to see what the angles were and all that, and where the lights are best seen. And Joplin and Seneth actually have kind of the same layout, which I think the article that you're referring to there, that's what I alluded to, that, the maps almost kind of look identical, which, might lead to postulation that maybe it's some sort of optical circumstance, or maybe there's something actually physical there that is being seen, and it's localized, and then maybe we should make a determination of if there's anything in the area that that can create these orbs. The stories are pretty much the same in these locations. The railroad worker accidentally gets killed, and he's looking for his head, and then people will see his lantern, as he's looking. Or a native woman was beheaded by her tribe for an illicit affair with a white man, or something like that. It's usually some sort of Indian tale, forbidden love or whatever. A lot of these stories have the same sort of mirroring. And you can't dismiss the spiritual aspect to it. It may very well have some sort of metaphysical component to it, but people are seeing real things in the real world, and those are two places where people are seeing the same sort of spook-like phenomena, which is worthy of looking at and worthy of considering, what they could be.
What about some of these smaller towns? Okay, I'm thinking the Enfield Horror, or you've gone a couple of times to Kelly Hopkinsville in Kentucky for the Museum of Artifacts. Do you like going to these smaller towns to find their legends and lore?
Yeah, I do. Now, with when you're traveling with two kids, 4 and 6, I guess they're turning 5 and 7 now, but we've been traveling for a few years. We have to drive in little short spurts. I think 4.5 hours is probably our max before we start going crazy. Getting on each other's nerves and yelling at each other, and so when I take a trip, I like to plan stuff out, far ahead of time, so that we can hit things along a route without making it too difficult. We'll take a route back or a route to somewhere, museum or an event or hotel or whatever, and we'll try to hit what we can along these different places. But I usually have planned out down in detail where I'm going, what I'm doing, what time I'm going to be there, where somebody stood or where a craft supposedly, landed, or where an alien was. I usually have researched that and geopositioned that down, to precise GPS locations, so I know where I'm going and what I'm seeing. So we haven't really taken a trip and just try to find the weird stuff along the way. That might be an interesting thing to do, because you have to kind of research it beforehand. Otherwise, some of these places are way out there. You're really, you can really get lost if you're going down the wrong road, or if you're hitting the wrong spot. It sort of defeats the purpose not to be planned out. And yeah, I love the small towns even more so, because you don't have other people there, and you can be with the sites usually a little more intimately.
Got a question from Everett. He is asking, Michael, have you ever traveled to Watseka, Illinois, and investigated the Watseka Lights?
No. I think I have that on the list, though. Where is that? Is that like, I don't know if he gave you any position. There are a lot of haunted houses, and there are a lot of spook lights and mystery roads and, strange creatures, especially in southern Illinois. And like I said, I try to knock these out as we go along and figure out the best route. I haven't been to there, but I certainly would be interested in it probably hasn't made it into we haven't taken that route that goes nearby, because I have bulletin boards and GPS stuff where that's where a lot of the traveling stuff started, probably about 4 years ago. I just started doing heavy research into logging all of these, different things, famous Bigfoot, famous UFO. I got hundreds of cases from different paranormal things and started putting pins into maps, and then started figuring out routes to visit different things. But we may make it up there. I think we do have other spook lights and other ghost light places to see before we make it up there.
Ron has a couple of questions for you. Have you ever checked out any Canadian sites of interest that you'd like to investigate?
Certainly. Actually, I would, love to go up and visit the Falcon Lake, the Michelek sighting, which I think the anniversary is coming up here soon. I think I do have a trip planned one of these days for like Halifax, Nova Scotia area up there, because there's a lot of things just in one area. I think you got the Oak Island pit up there. That'd be neat to see. Shag Harbor UFO crash was up there. I think you got, some interesting archaeological stuff going on up there. You got some TV shows and movies I think were filmed up there. I'm a big Trailer Park Boys fan, so I'd love to go to Halifax, and I'd love to go to one of the trailer parks, and just take a picture, from the, of one of those places up there. But yeah, I do visit, film locations if I can. We're going to be going to Chicago here for a tour in June, I guess about 6 weeks now, and we're gonna visit the UFO stuff and some haunted places up there. There's plenty of that stuff up in Chicago, but we're also gonna visit some movie places, movie film locations up there. We're gonna do the Blues Brothers and Ferris Bueller and Home Alone and some of the other movie locations. We like to throw those in there as well.
Very nice indeed. Ron has another question for you. Have you ever thought about or considered investigating the Denver airport and everything that goes along with that?
Yeah, I guess I'd have to fly out to Denver to do that, right? Or I guess I could drive, but that's kind of a long way. Yeah, I don't know what's really there anymore. I actually had a friend recently named Jaime who was heading back to Los Angeles. I think he had stopped off at the Denver airport for a layover, and I had him look around to see what was there. But I think they might have taken down the weird, creepy mural. But surely there's, the Freemason stuff is still there, and the weird Baphomet horse, and some of the other strange things that are going on at that place. Is it like some Illuminati secret base or some underground FEMA camp or whatever? I think there's underground stuff there. What's really going on? I couldn't tell you. It's certainly interesting, all the stuff that has sprung up around it, and I would love to go to the Denver airport, just take a look around there and see what weird stuff I can take pictures of.
Yeah, I think it'd be very interesting as well. That's you hate to say that, I want to go to Denver just for an airport, but when you're into the weird and creepy like we are, it's definitely something that we want to do. Ron gets the natural hat trick here on the questions. He is saying, what is the scariest investigation that you have covered or looked into? And would you ever, if you're going on, I know you're not a ghost hunter or anything along those lines, but do you believe that protection should be used spiritually if you're going into a ghost hunting situation or into a haunted location?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, I guess it can't hurt. If I was doing a ghost hunt, though, I would probably do things, a lot different than what you see, on sensational television. Where, first off, why are the lights off? Who does science with all the lights off, right? I mean, turn the lights off and you get other equipment in there, and stop using all the infragreen stuff so much. I would try to figure out, what I can measure, what I could see, or whatever. Now, as far as like spiritual protection, which is what I think what he's talking about, it doesn't hurt. I mean, if that's your belief system, it surely can't hurt. I do have family members, and my brother is more inclined towards the spiritual than I am. So, he believes in proper meditation and having amulets and, sort of almost like spells, to dissuade any, evil presence or evil spirit from interacting or causing, negative effect or whatever. Yeah, I haven't really found a need or a use for that. Like I said, I'm not really a ghost hunter. But yeah, I don't see how that wouldn't be of benefit.
Where's the road trip you haven't taken yet that you want to go? Let's say the top 3 on your list.
Well, we've been doing this just for a couple of years now, and we've ratcheted it up and kind of taken a more professional stance, because people are interested in what we're doing, and we're trying to do the travel stuff. Like I said, eventually we'll probably put out some books or whatever, but no, we've been doing this for a couple of years, but I have trips probably planned out for the next 10 years. And there's a lot of places that we still haven't been to that I would definitely love to go to. But I think as we get to the the really big, good, interesting cases in the historic places, I want to ratchet it up a little bit and kind of do it right. I definitely would like to go to New Hampshire and follow the Barney and Betty Hill route. The abduction. I would definitely love to follow that route. We have followed a couple of different routes for famous UFO cases, the Stanford, Kentucky abduction, and the Southern Illinois Triangle. We followed a couple of those routes, but I would love to get like in a 1957 Chevy and hit the road and go down, drive the same route that they did. I think that'd be pretty cool. I think we definitely need to make it out there to the Pacific Northwest. I want to see where Maury Island took place and Vancouver Island, and see where some of those Bigfoot are, and maybe even get into an airplane and fly over Mount Rainier and fly over the area where Kenneth Arnold had his first flying saucer encounter. Yeah, I think we probably do more stuff like that. In the next few years, though, I think we're going to go down to Texas. The Cash Landrum case from the early 80s is one of my favorites, and I definitely want to visit that location just outside of Houston. And we'll probably head down to Florida here in the next few years as NASA starts launching some of these rockets into space. I'd like to get my boys to see some of those. Coming up, aside from the Chicago trip, the most interesting thing we have going on is the Kelly Hopkinsville encounter, which took place in 1955. I mentioned it earlier. The famous Goblin case. These weird creatures attacked this farmhouse, and people shot back at them. And all this occurred after a UFO sighting. The anniversary of that event is August 21st, and it coincides with the August 21st solar eclipse that is going to be going across the United States and on the anniversary of this famous alien encounter. And also coincidentally, the Kelly location where the actual famous UFO incident took place is the epicenter of longest duration. So the longest, darkest center point of the entirety of the eclipse is going to be right over a famous UFO spot. So that's going to be a kind of a strange 4-day event. There's probably going to be a lot of UFO people down there and people interested in getting the best spot for the eclipse. It's one of those opportunities you can't pass up. And we've been finding that as we've been traveling just these past couple of years, there's a lot of interesting opportunities, visiting all these strange places. A lot of these places have festivals, and you get to see personalities and people that have written books and people that are experts on these different things come and talk, and you get to meet with a lot of these people at some of these actual spots. So while it is us, visiting places out in the forest, we're also, on the ground with some UFO experts at some of these interesting places, or, cryptozoologists. So we're looking forward to that. That should probably be the biggest one that we're looking forward to here. I think we'll take a lot of pictures and maybe some video. I think we might do some kind of video project out of that one.
Greg wants to know what got this passion started for you to travel to all these places.
Well, when you get old, you start having these bucket lists of things that you want to do, and when you're old, you have young kids, you want to kind of give them maybe the fun life you didn't have, or what. My childhood was fine, nothing wrong with that, but man, I would have loved to have gone to some of these cool spots, when I was a kid, because I was really interested in it. My kids are interested in it too. So I guess probably about 10 years ago, me and my wife, we did a lot of hiking. So, we spent a lot of time going to parks and hiking and all that. And then when we had a family, we found ourselves diverted to more traditional vacation spots and museums and all that. And after I did my tagging project of all the different paranormal places, we started planning this stuff out. So sort of accidental, sort of on purpose, just all happening recently, but it's something I definitely like to travel, and I definitely like interesting places, and I think if you're going to travel, they should be to interesting places.
You also have a passion for Sasquatch stories and cryptids as well. You've mentioned the Mothman earlier on. What makes you so fascinated about the cryptids hiding in the forest?
Well, all of these paranormal cultures are kind of interconnected, You'll have UFO stories where Bigfoot will show up, or vice versa. So they're all sort of interconnected, and a lot of the people that are active in these fields are active in the other fields. Bigfoot came right along with my interest in all the other weird stuff. Now there's a lot of cryptid activity around me, especially famous stuff that was documented that I have access to, and I'm intrigued by, namely because Lauren Coleman, who is the father of cryptozoology, he's from Southern Illinois, so all of his early cases, cryptid cases, were investigated in this area. So I get to retread some of his ground, and some of these iconic cases, local folklore and monsters and whatnot. Same thing with the UFOs. All throughout southern Missouri, a lot of these were investigated by Ted Phillips, a lot of these UFO cases, and I'm following in his footsteps a lot of these famous cases because I want to see him and I want to promote him and I want to educate people about some of these lesser known cases that are part of the lore. And here where I'm at in Cape Girardeau, we have like I said, our crash story, but we also have here at our university, Southeast Missouri State University here in Cape Girardeau was really one of the first universities to provide for a field investigation of UFOs, a scientific field investigation that their astronomy and physics department undertook in the 70s as part of a project called Project Identification. And Harley Rutledge was the head of the astronomy department here, and he engaged in that, I think, for 5 or 6 years in the 70s, documenting some of the stuff that was seen in the area around here. So, yeah, just being here and where I'm at and around it, I'm immersed into the UFO stuff and definitely into the cryptid stuff because, over across the river from where I'm at is Lauren Coleman's, backyard growing up. So there's a lot of great cases to rediscover and explore.
Have you looked into Sasquatch, and what is your opinion on what it is?
Well, have I seen a Sasquatch? I don't know. When I was a kid, I would stay at my grandfather's farm in Hillsboro, Missouri, which is a rural Missouri area, wooded. And, one night I saw something peeking its head through the window, So it had to have been 8 feet tall, and it had yellow glowing eyes. Was that a bear or a Bigfoot or something? I don't know. That's the closest thing I've had to any sort of weird creature type experience. There are a lot of cases throughout this area. Momo, the Missouri Bigfoot, supposedly is seen throughout Missouri. Those go back to the early 70s, and people still claim to see, orange Bigfoots in southern Illinois, white Bigfoots, and tracks still show up all throughout this area up into Ohio. But of course, that has nothing on the Pacific Northwest where, as you know, people have by the thousands have seen things that are certainly not bears, possible misidentifications, but, generally people that, live in those areas up there know what they're looking at. So I think the wilderness is big enough up there for something. Now you have to get into the science of, okay, what is a sustainable population? What are their migration routes? What are they going to eat? How do they survive? How come, we don't have any more substantial evidence, like a body or bones or anything like that? All those need to be addressed. And I think that's one thing that people are looking for. You can have the experience, but again, you need to have something in order to convince other people other than your tale. Now, if we're getting into the speculative, we might be dealing with a creature from, a parallel universe or another reality. Maybe things can slip in and out of, and this is being speculative, and there's totally room for that if you recognize that you are speculating. There may be some sort of interdimensional aspect or metaphysical or spiritual. There are people that believe Bigfoot might be a ghost, ghost squatchers. There are people that believe Bigfoot might be an alien, or an ultra-terrestrial, some sort of creature from the future or alternate realities or different dimensions. All those are possibilities, but ultimately, if you're looking for proof, it's going to come down to evidence, or if you're looking for the experience, I guess you just have to have one. And I guess I'm going to enough of these places to where the likelihood increases of, me seeing something, and hopefully something like that will happen.
Well, you know what? One thing when it comes to Bigfoot, that I've learned through this, and I'm someone who is I've seen 2 of them, and the one thing that I have learned is Bigfoot is one of those rare anomalies that, in my opinion, has divided up people in this field. We have the strictly scientific compared to the strictly spiritual, and there doesn't seem to be much in between. And I think both sides are right, as weird as that sounds. But there has to be some dynamic down the middle, because one side doesn't want to investigate the other. And I'm thinking, scratching my head here, how do we prove a creature exists when we refuse to delve into all the information and experiences that people have had in regards to it?
Right. Well, and but those experiences will take you only so far. I think experiences are good for giving us clues as to what we're looking for, and where our good places are to look. But ultimately, you still have to do the looking. You can't, just take somebody's witness account, and it may be sufficient for, say, a court of law, but science, and I don't speak for science. I'm just some dude, so, I'm just giving my opinion here. But I do think science does, require more than just accounts, They would want all the stuff brought from the Galapagos to study, not just take somebody's word on, this island exists, and all this weird stuff's there. Ultimately, we have to put our feet to the ground and go out there and look for some of these things. And I try to do it with my family in a fun, entertaining way, while also encouraging others to do likewise, and to kind of push these fields into respecting these places and pushing some serious investigations, so that we can really honor what some of these things are or aren't, and their impact that they've had on us. And but that's what I think.
We only got a couple of minutes left with you here tonight on the Mighty SOR. Is there, besides having the experience, is there anything that you want to have happen while you're going through this? Besides getting that close encounter with aliens or Bigfoot or Mothman, what would be the ultimate for you?
Well, for me, as a travel writer who writes about paranormal locations, I'm just sort of looking through that for that that thrill, that little high of being in in this weird spot. The investigator, researcher side of me, I don't know what it would necessarily take. Is that what you're asking, or?
Yeah, well, what would be, as we start to wind things down here, let me rephrase. What would be the one thing that you want to see to give you straight confirmation? Would it be Bigfoot? Would it be an alien?
Which of those? I don't know. I'd like to have some kind of ghost experience. I think that'd be pretty fascinating. Now, some people have said I've already had it, because after I visited, like, Exorcist House and McPike Mansion and the Lemp Mansion all within like a 2-day period, I was in a hospital within like a week. And some people have said, you can't visit too many evil places at once, otherwise it'll start to affect you. But yeah, I guess probably, like a ghost. Mm-hmm. But I would want a full body apparition, or, a ghost
right.
Tap me on the shoulder. I think that'd be an interesting thing. But
I don't blame you. Michael Huntington, thank you so much for being on Space Out Radio tonight. I'm going to get you to hold on for a minute while I shut this thing down. If you're listening in on the terrestrial radio side, you hear Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL cranking out the music. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, keeps us rocking in and takes us home every single night. We want to say thank you to everyone participating in the chat rooms on all of our internet sites, including Twitter, and those who carry us on a nightly basis, including our terrestrial radio stations, WQEE down in Noonan, Georgia, and UPRN in New Orleans on 107.7 FM. Great to have you all with us tonight. Tomorrow night on the program, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time, Jennifer Weigel is going to join us. We're talking paranormal. We're talking spirituality. We're trying to figure out what is going on and can you communicate with the other side. It's going to be a great night at spacedoutradio.com. Tomorrow night's my last show before I head off to Boston on the weekend. I want to say thank you to everyone on my team who takes part and makes this show happen. Bob Davis with our great intro voice from The Encounter, Everett Themer and Eric Markham. Jolene on the website. Catherine James, social media. Kim Gandy, Director of Business. Thomas McGowan in sales. I am your host, Dave Scott. And we own the night. Thank you very much for being with us on the Mighty SOR. Mr. Bumblefoot, take us home.